This is North Pod, a North Melbourne fan podcast, hosted by Jason Hunt.
Now the back Zurhaar, he backs it, he kicks it, all the floor from Duursma! This is the speed of the culture, 3 bounces down the wing, he keeps going, 4 bounces. Joining the chorus, the Can't Lose Kangas, AFLW Premiers.
Hello and welcome back once again to North Pod. It's time. The matches or match practice has officially began. We've had an intraclub and I'm back recording in the present day, so to speak. It's been a while since I've been behind the mic, actually, since I pre-recorded those first few episodes for the season, but we're in the present now, and we've missed a bit, or I've missed a bit. I'm sure you haven't over the last couple of weeks. I guess we'll touch on news, even though it's not really going to be news to you towards the end of the episode. But I just thought I'll jump on. I've watched the intra-club match, the blue versus pink as it was, and I'm just going to give some stray thoughts, I guess. It's not going to be a traditional match review. It's kind of weird to review a match in which you play yourself and players are switching. And obviously, you know, it's the first official intra-club. There's been plenty of scratch match stuff and match simulation stuff earlier on in the pre-season, but it's the first, or it's the biggest match we've had so far. We've got a bit of a pracky match against Melbourne next weekend, so we're building, but yeah, it's probably not quite enough of a game for me to want to review it in the usual style. But I sort of made notes as I was watching, as though it was a real game, and it sort of tailed off towards the end when things weren't necessarily as important, I guess. If you haven't caught up with it, the blue team was essentially the probables, mostly players that you would expect, or at least in the running for that round one team. And then a couple of, I guess, surprise entries in that. Whitlock, I was a little surprised to see there, and possibly that was just to get him some experience and some synergy with the senior players. But yeah, that was an eyebrow raiser for me. Jacob Constanti was another that I wasn't necessarily expecting to see in the side. And Will feel maybe a little bit less surprising, particularly with Wardlaw's injury, which we'll talk about towards the end. But they were probably the three that went, okay, they're in with a chance. And then, yeah, they were playing the pink side, which was the possibles, with maybe, I don't know, half a side of North Melbourne listed players, topped up by some VFL players. They did do some swapping of jerseys, I think the second half, so third quarter and fourth quarter there was a bit of swapping, and a couple of players didn't play the full match. So Aidan Corr only played a half, Tristan Sherry only played a half, and then, I couldn't remember off the top of my head, but so Taylor Goad swapped from pink to blue. Will Dawson only played the second half. He came on for Aidan Corr, and both of them actually played in the pink side. Again, maybe that's just, you sort of want to have someone with some experience in Aidan Corr playing a bit of time on the other team. Zane Duursma was one who started on the pink team, and then he swapped over to the blue side. So, yeah, there was a bit of swapping and changing. Yeah, for the most part, it was a ones versus the twos, and honestly, it was kind of reminiscent of the intra-club last year, where early days you're sitting there going, geez, what hope do we have? Because the pink side's beating the blue side. They kicked the first goal, and they were pretty competitive early on, but certainly as the match wore on, the blue team, or the ones, really stretched ahead as you would hope, and it was a pretty comfortable win in the end. Yeah, definitely there was some passages of play where it absolutely looked like it was some AFL players playing some VFL players. So hopefully it was a bit of a case of the cobwebs being blown out, and hopefully we can see some more consistent footy from some of those players moving forward. But look, I feel like anything that I'm saying in this podcast is a bit of a take it with a grain of salt, given the fact that it is intra-club. So yeah, I'm just going to walk through the notes that I've got here, and then I might have a look at the team sheet and just do some quick thoughts on anyone that I didn't really mention. Off the top, I mentioned Duursma. I think he's one that I want to start with. He started on the pink side and transitioned onto the blue team, and pretty much played midfield the entire game. He did drift forward, certainly, but he was playing wing and in the middle. So an interesting shift of role, I don't know. I can't foresee. Who knows at this point? I'd be surprised to see him playing midfield round one for us, for example. I just think we've got so many players that can go through there that are probably ahead of him. But yeah, I guess that's one where you do wonder, is that where we see him long term? And so therefore we're wanting to see what that might look like in match sim. It'll be interesting to see if he does play that role when we get further on into the pre-season. I'm not too sure, but he was fantastic. He was really, really good. Read the play really well, so got himself into some really good positions. Kicked a goal or two. One of them was maybe it was just the one, but he kicked a goal from a 50-metre penalty. He had some really good overlapping play. We know he's a fantastic mark. Yeah, he surprised me. He played a lot differently through the midfield than I guess we saw him playing as that half forward role last year, and he seemed to find it really easy to find the footy. So also put on a bit of weight. I thought he was really strong in the contest, really quick. So yeah, he looked fantastic. Definitely has taken a step up from what we were seeing from him last year, and super promising. Even if he doesn't play entirely through the midfield, I'd kind of be surprised if that was the case. He definitely can go through there. So maybe he is going to be that Cam Zurhaar hybrid midfielder forward that we've been toying with for so many years now. To me, it looked like he could do that. I didn't see that necessarily from him last year, but he definitely had that on show during this game. So yes, super, super impressive from Duursma. He swapped onto the blue team later in the game and did the same thing. So that was fantastic. Super promising. You love those high draft picks to come along like he was. Another player that stood out to me that I guess I wasn't necessarily having my eye on at this stage was Eddie Ford. I'm fairly sure he played the whole game on the pink side, certainly if not most of it. And yeah, he was everywhere. He was really busy playing that high half forward wing role. Took a lot of marks up the ground, found some space inside 50, was really, he looked really fit and quick, which is not necessarily how I would have described him last year at times. He did get some cramp in the last quarter, which was a bit amusing and perhaps reflective of the fact that, you know, he was getting around so much and just buzzing, to be honest. But yeah, he put his hand up. He was, like I said, playing for the possibles. So, and I certainly, he was on my radar as one that I just don't know how he fits into the side this coming year. But if he plays like he did and he's able to kick, you know, a goal a game, something like that, as that really high half forward, releasing option off half back, then yeah, like who knows, maybe there is a role for him to play. We know he's on a 1-year deal, so he's kind of, you know, he's being forced to play for his spot, which I think is fair enough for a player in his position. But he was really, really impressive, I thought. Throughout the majority of the game, didn't really. He started strong, but I thought he didn't really drift out at all until he completely drifted off with that cramp. So he was super impressive as another one that, yeah, really, really put his hand up for selection in the early weeks. One that I guess I was a little bit surprised to see him on the blue team, Matt Whitlock. You can absolutely see why we gambled with our drafting and trading last year to select him. Played back, showed some really good defensive craft, had a couple of good spoils, really desperate. He's quite agile and quick for a player of his size. He's obviously going to take some time to put on some strength and some bulk. He still looks a bit like a giraffe out there. But he had some really good moments. A highlight for him, he had a smother on the wing and then collected the ball and just shot it inside 50, hit Larky on the chest with a beautiful kick. And that's an insight into the kind of player that we could have. We know that he is a swingman. He can play both ends of the ground, but it looks like we're going to start him in defence. And I don't really think he put a foot wrong for the day. I would be surprised if he plays round one, to be clear, but I probably went in thinking that he's not going to play at all this year, and I've come away going, all right, there's definitely, if there's some injuries or even just like we did with Will Dawson last year, there might be an opportunity to blood him and just at least give him a bit of a taste for AFL level. So yeah, he was super impressive and not just one of those tall defenders that can't kick it, or, you know, when he gets possession of the ball, you're concerned. He looks like he knows what he's doing with the ball. And yeah, I thought super impressive. So it's an early tick, plenty of water to go under the bridge with a player like Whitlock, but I think I saw enough to go, okay, he absolutely could be a player for us in the future. Robert Hansen Jr. is another that, whilst I think he was probably on the fringes of my best side, we saw him come in for the second part of the season last year and play a couple of good games. Wouldn't say he was playing great, but he played some good games. And I thought he was fantastic. Really looked quick. I thought the way that he read the play was a lot better than I'd seen him do in previous seasons. Every pack he was hitting at pace and crumbing, more often than not. Obviously, if you hit it at pace, there's going to be those times where it just doesn't bounce your way. But when it did, he took off. Looked really improved from last year. In the third quarter took a couple of bounces and kicked a goal from 45, and that's what we need to see him do at AFL level. We know that he's quick. We know that he's capable of something special when he does have the ball, but I think his composure in this game was what made a big difference. He didn't make poor decisions. He had quick and effective hands. And like I said, he just read the play a lot better. So for me, he's in position 1A for that small forward role in terms of a damaging small forward that's going to kick goals. He did kick a couple in this game, so he's ready to go. And I thought he also hit a couple of good inside 50 kicks as well. So he was just doing everything that you would want from that small forward role. And like I said, just really impressed me. I thought he was fantastic. I guess there's some players that I thought were great. Finbar Maley is one I'd like to touch on, actually. We know he's played at the VFL last year. He's so raw in terms of his AFL skills. He's a fantastic mark, and he's got great body work. A little bit different to Zane Duursma, but he has the same capacity to just drift in front of a pack or drift into a pack and take a mark that you weren't necessarily expecting him to take. Yeah, great hands. He just needs to work on his kicking. I don't think he ended up with a goal. Certainly kicked a couple of points and one that went very wayward. So that's the thing that would allow him to play in the side is, if he can learn to kick. He's come from a basketball background. And so, that's a big part of the reason that his kicking's not quite up to scratch. But he was a fantastic mark, really strong hands, and read the ball in the air really well. So I think for him, that the opportunity for him to come in would be if he's able to develop his kicking and his goal kicking in particular a little bit more. Because if you're taking a mark inside 50, you need to be able to deliver and kick a goal there. So that's what's missing from his game, but I think we saw enough from him to see why we've selected him and why we've taken him as a bit of a punt, because if you could, he's never going to end up being an elite kick, a player with his background, but he could become a really good kick. And I guess that's what we're hoping for with him, or even just he could become a solid kick. And if he's able to do that and he's only taking marks inside 50 and maybe going into the ruck every now and then, I think there's a future for him in the side potentially. So yeah, he was one that was, I guess we saw what is possible for him. I certainly think he's going to be starting in the VFL, but he would be handy to have as that second ruck option. So maybe second half of the year we could see, again, if his kicking is able to improve. So they're probably the ones that jumped out right away to me as ones that I need to talk about. There's a few, I guess, easy ones to talk about. I mean, Sherry was fantastic in the ruck for the half that he played. He doesn't look like he's going to take a step backward at all from what we saw from him last year. It's a couple of great hit-outs straight down to Sheasel. Again, Sheasel was probably the most consistent and best on. Maybe you could compete with Zurhaar for that, but Sheasel was fantastic through the middle and sometimes up at half forward. Just silky smooth, exactly what we expect from him. He's going to be such a weapon this year through the middle part of the ground. Just like always, he's a one-touch player. That's really the best way to describe him. It was interesting to see. I thought Bailey Scott's role looked to me quite different from last year. Still definitely played some wing time, but it looked to me as though he was more playing a wing half forward role than a wing half back role, which is what we saw him do a lot of last year. He snuck forward for a goal, but that's not necessarily unusual for him. I just thought, it was interesting to see. I thought he spent a lot more time in the forward half of the ground. And again, certainly playing off that wing role. So potentially that was just match simulation stuff. We'll see what that, or whether that translates to AFL football. Maybe it's just that his side had the ball in the forward half more often than I'm used to seeing. But to me, at least, it looked as though he was playing a bit more of a forward half role. So I guess that's one to watch. Caleb Daniel, I guess, is maybe we could talk about the inclusions here. Caleb Daniel was one that played the exact role that we thought he was going to come in and play, was playing that deepest distributor role, taking the kick-outs from full back, and just sort of scything his way through the ground. Moved his way up a little bit at times, but was playing that Sheasel 2023 role, that McKercher 2024 role, which is what we brought him across to do. And yeah, I thought he was fantastic in that role. He had a couple of really good link-ups. I thought he kicked further up the ground pretty well as well. So he's definitely one that he's a shoe-in for round one, and I think is gonna make that back line and that movement out of the back half a little bit easier than it's been, or at least keep it like it's been with McKercher and Sheasel playing those roles. Luke Parker was pretty quiet, one that he did kick a goal and I guess rotated through that midfield and half forward role like we thought he would. Didn't necessarily set the world on fire, had a couple of good clearances, but I think that's probably what we're going to get from him. He's going to be a Liam Shields type, in that he's going to be really consistent. We know what we're going to get from him, but he's not necessarily going to jump off the page, or at least he didn't in this game. So certainly not a complaint, but didn't bust the game open or anything like that. Jack Darling, similarly, I think came across and has played the role, or in this game played the role that we brought him across to play. He was playing up forward. He allowed Larky and Zurhaar to probably have a bit more space than they would have had, and he applied some really good pressure at ground level, had some good tackling inside 50, did kick a goal or two. Like Luke Parker, I guess, didn't bust the game open. I don't think that's what he's going to do. He took a couple of ruck contests as well, but wasn't, I guess, in that first rotation. So I wonder if that was more just because we'd lost Sherry in terms of a ruck option on the ground. So look, maybe he'll take that second ruck option, but I'm not too sure who that's going to be. Larky actually took quite a few ruck contests, which to me maybe indicates that he might be one that will go into the ruck and play that second ruck option. Not sure how I feel about that. I think he should pretty much be in the full forward line or off the ground having a quick rest. So anyway, I guess that's one that we'll wait and see when we're playing some more realistic match simulation against an actual opposition. And then Jacob Constanti is the other one, I guess, that came across during the trade period. Played for the blue team, which was a little bit surprising to me. Didn't have a fantastic game, but I think similar to what I've said with the others, he did do what we kind of expected he was going to do. He had a lot of smothering attempts. He applied a lot of pressure in the forward half, a few tackles. Didn't necessarily get on the end of too many, but by the same token, I feel like that was he and Robert Hansen Jr. were kind of opposites. Hansen Jr. was the one doing it all with the ball, and Constanti was the one doing it without. So I don't look at that as a fail for him at this stage. And I mean, we essentially got him as the steak knives with Luke Parker. So I think it's going to be hard for him to fail. But I think I saw enough from him that I think he's going to play some games this year. But he probably ends up being more like that Kane Turner type that applies a lot of pressure, isn't necessarily a high possession type player, but can be high impact. I guess it's going to be a wait and see. So they're the trade acquisitions and how I saw them measuring up. I've spoken about Matt Whitlock. I should touch on Finn O'Sullivan-Foss. I don't think he busted the game open. I thought he played well. He kicked a goal late, which was nice. McKercher also kicked a really nice goal late. But yeah, I thought Finn O'Sullivan played that wing role that we've been hearing he's going to play. I didn't see a lot of him in at centre bounce attendances, but he was playing in the blue team, so it was kind of a hard centre bounce to get into. Yeah, he did a couple of nice things, took a nice grab. So I certainly still have him penciled in at this stage to play round one, but I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. I think he's got plenty more to show. So yeah, a promising, if not unremarkable start from Finn O'Sullivan, I thought. Obviously coming in as the high draft pick, there's going to be a level of expectation, but I think he's going to be totally up to it. I think, I thought he played pretty well. Luke Urquhart is one that played, I think, exclusively for the pink team, and he was really good. He was a solid contributor. I thought he had his fair share of possession, had some great grunt work, also a bit of spread. Yeah, I think he's a likely type. I don't expect him to play round one, but I know there's been a fair bit of talk out of the club about whether or not he's going to, make an impact this year. And look, I do think it'll probably take some injuries or some suspensions for him to get an opportunity early on, but I think he'll be ready if the opportunity comes up for sure, because, he just looks like he didn't look out of place at all. Played mostly through the middle, and playing in the pink team gave him that opportunity, and I thought he was impressive. So he's probably one to watch for the second half of the year potentially, and even if not, I think what we saw is enough to show that he's got some potential at AFL level. So again, everything's with a grain of salt because we're only playing ourselves, but I thought he was pretty impressive. Who else have we got here? I mean, I spoke about Cam Zurhaar before, and he kicked 5 goals. He was the most dangerous forward. He also made a couple of rusty decisions. He played on too fast and had a kick smothered. A couple of interesting decisions with ball in hand early on in particular. But even withstanding that, he was able to kick 5 and looked really dangerous. Looked strong. Took a couple of really good marks. Looked pretty quick to me as well. So look, potentially he's the one that benefits the most from having someone like Jack Darling in that forward line. Let's be honest, Larky's going to get the best defender either way, but maybe this means that Zurhaar's going to get the third at times, because Zurhaar and Darling are quite similar in that they do play a little taller than they are. They're kind of third tall forward options, the both of them, and so one of them's going to by default end up the second unless we are playing another forward like Comben or potentially Bryn Teakle down there. But Zurhaar was really lively. A couple of opportunistic goals, and like I said, a couple of decisions that were a bit questionable. He was a little bit rusty in that department, but looked super dangerous, and was probably, you could argue, he was best on ground maybe with Harry Sheasel. What else can I speak about here? Comben was playing off half back. I thought he played pretty well. Nothing super flashy. A couple of good intercept grabs. Like last year, I've got an issue when he's got the ball in his hand and he's in defensive 50. He took a really good intercept mark and then tried to play on and kick to the side or kick sideways too fast, and it was smothered. Cooper Harvey ended up kicking a goal out of that, and then Charlie Comben got him in a headlock and gave away a free kick, and Cooper Harvey kicked another, which was very interesting. It looked as though Cooper Harvey was on the warpath with literally anyone. He played pink team, I think, the whole time, and he finished with 3 goals. 2 of them came in that one passage in the second quarter, and he just looks to be wanting to get physical with everyone. It was interesting. I didn't necessarily know that he had that in him, but boy, he was niggly. Anyway, he also got stuck into Tristan Sherry at one point. Cooper Harvey, he was really playing above his weight division, and he's come to fight for his spot this year, I guess. But Charlie Comben played halfback, played that intercepting role, and I think as soon as he gets the ball, I'm a little bit concerned, but the way that he was spoiling it and I guess jumping across packs says to me that he's probably going to start that role that he played for the first half of last year. I think we'll see him take that back up, and for sure, I think that's where he's going to play to start off with. Who knows if he ends up being swung forward later on in the year. Wilfield was one that I think there's definitely going to be opportunities for him. I've spoken about him before. I really do rate him. I really hope that he, makes it as an AFL player. And, I think there's been a bit of talk about him in the off-season that he's really, taken a step. I don't know that I necessarily saw him take a step in this game, but I think we saw him put together with a bit more consistency. Did make a pretty shocking mistake with a inboard kick late in the game, but for the most part, I thought he was really good. He was a bit more of an accumulator than he would normally be, but I think that's a byproduct of getting more opportunities. He's definitely still going to be a handball first player and a tackle first player. He's a great clearance player. When he does kick it, he can be a really good short, incisive kick, but his first, I guess, default it always seems to be to hand pass it and to get his teammates involved, and he's very good by hand. So I think with Wardlaw's injury, there's absolutely an opportunity for him to play in the first part of the season and maybe make himself really undroppable. But I was impressed by what I saw, albeit I don't think it was a massive leap from what we've seen from him in past preseasons, because I thought last preseason he was gonna be a shoe-in for a spot as well, and it didn't eventuate. Charlie Lazaro ended up getting the starting role, and we know how that went. So yeah, I'm interested to see how Wilfield goes as the season goes on. Just going back to Urquhart, he did take a really good brave mark going back with a flight and kicked a goal as a result of that. I should have mentioned that earlier on. I guess that's the sort of quality that you look at that and you go, that does translate to AFL football. Like, you might get yourself killed running back like that, but it's that kind of bravery and capacity to take those marks no matter what's coming the other way. I think that, potentially could see him selected. So I didn't want to go past without mentioning that. I mean, look, McKercher, I mentioned, he was just taking bounces for fun, running through the middle. He has that ability to look like he's about to be tackled and take a bounce and somehow still accelerate away from his opposition, which is it's freakish talent. I think we saw him playing higher up the ground more as that wing role, and some of his kicks inside 50 were fantastic. He hit Jacob Constanti with a great kick inside 50 in the second quarter. Like I mentioned, he kicked a goal in the last. I think having Caleb Daniel playing that deeper role is going to unlock McKercher further up the ground. So I think the more we can see him up the ground and actually getting the ball, I think it's going to be super exciting. But potentially we'll see him actually through the middle at times this year, but certainly up on the wing. I think if we have McKercher and Scott as our starting wings and we're rotating some other players through those spots, I think we're in a great spot. Finn O'Sullivan's another that's going to probably rotate through those positions. So yeah, McKercher, I don't think he took a step, because I think we saw exactly what we got from him last year. But the more running bounces, the better from him. He was fantastic. I mean, look, LDU has some flashes of brilliance, including a really good goal from the boundary. Didn't necessarily see anything from him that made me go, he's going to, repeat his fantastic season from last year. But I think, it's pre-season. He did enough to show that, nothing's changed with him. I think all the talk and all the focus on him is going to be whether or not he signs, and that's going to be his lot for the year, unfortunately for him. So, look, hopefully he signs early. I spoke in the last episode about the fact that I don't necessarily think it's going to be too early in the year that he does. But yeah, I thought he showed some good signs. There was a combination where Sherry got it down to, I think, Powell, and then the Powell LDU Wilfield link up essentially would have connected for a power goal if not for Paul Curtis giving away a free kick. There was a couple of reversals where, because it was just a bit of a two-camera setup and, it's a intra-club match, we weren't necessarily able to see exactly what happened. But yeah, there's a couple of reversals that made me go, I'd just like to see that. I know it's an intra-club, but let's start off being disciplined. Anyway, like I said, the connection with X, Wilfield, Powell, LDU through that middle part was fantastic. I didn't talk about Tommy Powell yet, but he's another one there's been a fair bit of talk about in the preseason. Played every game last year, and I think he is ready to take his game to another level. He definitely looks really strong. We know he's a fantastic hand pass. He looked quicker to me than he looked last year. He looked like he was covering the ground really well, and I think, yeah, obviously at times he's going to float forward, but I expect that most of his football is going to be in the middle. And I think he's ready to stamp himself as a good AFL level midfielder. I think last year it was about establishing himself in the side. I think there's no question he's done that, but I think he's ready to go to be a good player at AFL level, and I think we're going to see that from him this year based on what we saw. Who else do I need to talk about here? Look, Callan Dawson and Toby Pink, both of them were playing for the Pink side, ironically, and yeah, I think they're going to be depth players again this year. I just can't see how, if we're fit, either of them are getting in the side. Callan Dawson gave away a few frees, and both he and Pink just looked out-muscled, out-strengthed in defence. I guess you'd expect that when they're playing on players like Darling and Zurhaar and Larkey, who clearly have more talent. But look, I think they'll be serviceable backups this year. I don't think that either of them are going to, or are likely to be long-term players for us. I think that's where they're at. They're a bit of a stopgap whilst we had Logue out and we've had some not a lot of options in defensive 50. I think that's probably what we can expect from them. Taylor Goad was an interesting one. He played the first half of the pink team. He played the first half of the pink team in the ruck, and then swapped over to the blue team when Sherry hit the pine for the second half. And I thought he really showed a bit. He obviously, Sherry got the points in the first half, but Goad definitely won a few contests. There was one where he essentially did his own roving and burst out of the middle with a kick from the centre circle. It's hard to see him getting a game this year based on where Sherry's at, but I think I saw enough from him to say, he's clearly put some weight on. He's developed last year, and I think he's going to be ready in the years to come, whenever that is, to take over from Sherry. Had some really good ruck craft and some good body work for a man of his size. So that was reassuring. I don't expect to see him this year unless there's an injury, but I think the fact that he was able to compete says that he's going to be ready if required. So that was promising. Riley Hardiman's one that I haven't talked about yet. I'm pretty sure he played the entire game for Pink and was just super busy. I thought read the play really well. Found himself in the right position. Was a great kick. Most of the time he was kicking, he was rebounding 50, or he was kind of chaining up through that half back to wing area. And I thought he did a fantastic job with that. He's probably going to be fighting for a spot with players like Miller Bergman, Josh Goder if he comes back. He didn't play. He's still recovering from his injury last year, but there might be a chance for him off that half back potentially, depending on how things go with players like Zach Fisher, players like Josh Goder, Miller Bergman. But I don't think Hardiman could have done anything more with the minutes that he had. He was really good with his kicking and like I said, found plenty of the ball. So super promising from him, and I thought, did a fantastic job with the minutes that he had. I think that's all for the kind of notes that I've taken here. I'll go and have a look at the team sheets just so I can speak through any other players that I haven't really mentioned, but that's really all that jumped off the page to me. In the first half, I didn't love the blue team's defensive zone. I just thought that the pink team was cutting through it and getting through it far too easily. I don't know if that's because of the way that we were trying to set up in an intra-club, but I'd like to see that improved, certainly when we get to the real games, because I thought that Pink just moved the ball out of defence far too easily and got themselves. That's how they were able to compete in that first half and put a score on the board, because didn't matter really. They were able to get the ball to at least the middle of the ground without too much trouble, just with some short kicks. So that's one to watch to see if that's more of a growing pain or just a result of how we decide to play this game, or if our defensive zone needs some work. But that's one to watch. Let's have a look at the team sheet here, and just I guess I can speak through anyone that I haven't mentioned. Aiden Core only played a half. Didn't really do too much. He's still recovering from some preseason surgery, so not a lot to mention with here. He did some running in the second half, but was fine for the pink team in the first half. Georgie Wardlaw didn't play. We know he's got that hamstring injury, and I guess I said I'd talk about him at the end, but super gutted for him. It's we were really hoping that he was going to come on this year and show us what he's made of. He's going to spend at least the first month and a bit, you'd think, on the sidelines, which is super disappointing. But look, it's all about the opportunities, I guess. From our perspective, we've got to look at it as someone like Will Phillips is going to get more opportunity. Maybe Fino Sullivan and Colby McKercher are going to get more reps than they would have. So we've just got to look at it from that perspective, I think. I think I made a prediction last episode that he was going to play a fair few games, George Wardlaw, and that's already looking like it might be a threat. But hopefully it's not too bad, and he's able to return and not miss a game once he does return. Who else have it? Luke McDonald was one that played for the blue team. We know that he's given up the captaincy this year, and I think did exactly what you'd expect from him. He played with aggression. He did get his teammates involved. A couple of times he probably took the tackler on when maybe he didn't need to, but I didn't see anything about his game that made me concerned. I think he's still, for me, likely to be in that round one side, if nothing else, but for a bit of experience and a bit of communication that back half. because that is something that we need. He's a smaller, medium type defender, which is something. He's a defend first at that size. We don't necessarily have a lot of players that play that size where their first default is to defend. So I guess that's another thing to note about him. But yeah, I thought he had a solid hit out. Jai Simpkin didn't play. He was busy getting best on ground in the Indigenous All-Stars game. So he was phenomenal in that game. 30 disposals, kicked a goal, plenty of clearances, plenty of tackles. Yeah, he was fantastic. He's looking like he's going to be an absolute weapon in 2025, but didn't play in the intraclub. So I've only seen highlights of his game, but obviously best on ground. So it must have been something pretty special, holistically speaking. Darcy Tucker, I think he's going to be there to do exactly what he did in 2024. Played for the blue team, found plenty of the ball, and just seemed to be that utility, that link up between the arcs. Can kind of play a bit higher up, can play on the wing if you need, can play off half back. Like I said, found plenty of the footy, but didn't do anything that made me think he's going to do anything different this year. Dill Stevens, I thought, started really strongly. He was finding plenty of the ball for the Pink team, but sort of like he's tended to in the AFL games last year, he would drift in and out throughout the game. He is super fit, but it seems as though he'll start a quarter pretty quickly and then just find it difficult after that. So yeah, an interesting one. I don't have him in my round one side, but if he's able to accumulate or do some damage at VFL level, or maybe even in these practice games, we'll see. But not one that I've got penned in as the starting side at this stage. Zach Fisher still recovering from injury. He didn't play. Will Dawson played the second half of the game and didn't see a lot of the footy. Griffin Logue's an interesting one. I'm fairly sure he played the whole game. And didn't see a lot of it. I guess he was playing for the blue team, and particularly in that second half, the ball didn't really go down in the blue team's defensive part of the ground. But I just didn't see a lot from him. Hopefully it's just to blow out the cobwebs. For me, he's our first choice defender when fit. So yeah, hopefully he is able to get a good run at it this year. We know that the last two seasons, the first 2/3 of the season in 23, he was fantastic. Then he unfortunately had the ACL and then fought his way back last year only to get another injury. So look, a hit out unscathed, so we'll take that, but didn't see a lot from him. Nick Larky, I guess I've mentioned in passing a few times, kicked 3 goals. I think we know exactly what to expect from him, and we saw that. Cal Coleman-Jones still recovering, so we didn't see him. Geordie Payne played on the Pink team and found a little bit of the ball, but didn't do anything that suggested to me that he's going to be in the round one side. Paul Curtis is an interesting one. I thought he was really quiet. Like I mentioned before, he gave away a free kick that cost the blue team a goal, and just one of those games where he wasn't really able to find the footy. Did get a couple of hand passes and kicks in the forward half of the ground, but wasn't able to convert that to scoreboard and didn't have a damaging game. So similar to Griffin Logue, hopefully it's a blow at the cobwebs game for him, because we know he was phenomenal last season, but didn't necessarily bring a lot of that in this game. Miller Bergman, I mentioned in passing, he found a bit of the ball, but I think if I was comparing he and Riley Hardiman's game, Hardiman played a much more damaging role off halfback for the Pink side, so I'd have Hardiman ahead of Bergman, I think. Goda didn't play. He had still recovering from that injury. Same with Braden George. Toby Pink I kind of mentioned. Jackson Archer, I guess, did a bit. I'd still like him to work on his kicking. I think that's going to be, the area of improvement for him is, can he hurt you or hurt the opposition with disposal, but didn't really put a foot wrong. I think his defensive craft was, up to the standards, what we usually expect from him. River Stevens kicked a cheeky goal late, did a little bit, but certainly I don't expect to see him starting, and I think that's really no surprise. Cooper Harvey's 3 goals was a bit of a surprise. That was an interesting one. Bryn Teakle would be the only other one I haven't really spoken at all about. Played the majority of the game, if not all of the game, in the Pink side, was doing some rucking and some forward work for them. And he's one that I'm not too sure about. Obviously, picked him up in the mid-season draft last year and didn't miss a game once he played. Played that second ruck role and that third or second forward role, and was able to do those both okay. I think we certainly saw an improvement with our forward set up with him there, but I guess I wonder with Jack Dallin coming across if that role is going to be superfluous for us. Didn't do anything wrong in this game. I think that's the thing with him. He's that player that is more of a structure guy. He's not one that is going to rip a game apart or anything like that. That's not what he's there for. So didn't do his chances any damage, I don't think, but it's more around how he fits in with the makeup of the side. So he's one to watch. I think right now for me, he's probably not in the side, but I am open to that changing potentially depending on, structurally how we want to set up. So yeah, I think for the most part, that's pretty much everyone I've at least spoken on a little bit. Really, the only news I did want to touch on was the George Wardlaw stuff, and I guess I got to that. We know Jai Simpkin is our sole captain, and that's an exciting prospect for sure. So there, I guess, the two major pieces of news that I didn't necessarily get to cover over the past couple of weeks. The preseason is essentially over now. We are into the pracky matches, match simulation proper. So next weekend, I think it's on the Sunday. Let me double check that. No, it's on the Saturday. Saturday, the 22nd of Feb is when we're playing Melbourne for some match simulation at Arden Street. So I guess that'll be the next opportunity we get to see, what it's looking like for us. And I guess playing a real opposition, so to speak. So I certainly will unpack that game. Depending on how that goes, I might, give my new match review structure a go. There are a few changes for the way I'm going to review the games this year, so I might give a little go and before we play our official pre-season game against West Coast in a couple of weeks. But I guess that's going to do it for this podcast. Just the usual stuff. If you could follow me on social media at NorthPod Show. You can find me on Blue Sky now as well as X and Instagram. Give the show a subscribe and a follow wherever you can, and a review on your chosen podcast platform. I'd really appreciate it. And if you do want to support the show in an additional way, any support is obviously appreciated. Subscribing is the main way to do that, but if you would like to support in an additional way, you can find my Buy Me a Coffee link in the show description. Yeah, I guess that's all for me. It's good to be back watching and talking about some actual games rather than some hypotheticals. And we'll look ahead to the first pre-season game against some real opposition next week. That's all for me. Go North. Thanks for listening to another episode of NorthPod. If you give me a rating or review on your podcast service, that would be much appreciated. And please follow me on all social media at NorthPod Show. I'm on X or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and I'm also very active on the North Melbourne subreddit. Hope you'll join me for the next episode.